So, um, next up, we've got a fireside chat session. So I'll be speaking to two exceptional personalities who will delve into the evolving landscape of artificial intelligence and how Indian developers are building for the world. First, we have Mr. Varun Maya. He's a dynamic technology entrepreneur. Yeah. So has successfully sold to businesses. He's currently the founder of AOS Labs. He's a popular social media influencer, and he's the co-host of the Overpowered AI podcast. Joining him is Tanmay Bhatt. He's one of India's most popular YouTubers, comedians, scriptwriter. He also co-hosts the Overpowered AI podcast with Varun. There's Tanmay. Tanmay, we are waiting for you. Round of applause for Tanmay Bhatt. No worries. That's your seat. All right, welcome, guys.
How's it going, guys? Good morning. Yeah. I don't know if it's clear, but I'm on like zero sleep. I chose the 5:30 a.m. Vistara to get here. Yeah, anyway.
We exchanged texts in the morning at we exchanged texts at 4:30 a.m.
Oh, man. Can AI fix this? No, it can't. This shit is still going to be the same. How's it going, Varun?
All
nice
good,
to be here,
good.
man. Thanks for having us.
Of course, thank you, Tanmay, and thank you, Varun, for coming over. Artificial intelligence, Indian developers building for the world. There's so much happening in India right now. What are your first thoughts?
I see he just look at how he keeps looking at me. Okay. I am net an optimistic person, and Varun is net a doomer. So every time I have an optimistic thought, I look at his face and I'm like, shit, it's not going to be this, is it? It's going to be bad. It's exciting. I think the next decade is going to be crazy. I think it's going to be a super interesting time, especially for artists. I don't have very strong opinions about developers, so I think Varun would have that. But for artists, it's a very exciting time. It's becoming more and more clear to me that human plus AI is going to be a superior output. And it's become very clear to me that artists who are leveraging AI are going to have a leg up. I see this both in the advertising world, I see this in the music industry, so I see it in the visual design industry as well. That's become very clear, and it's getting really good every couple of months. I don't know if you guys have used like Suno AI or any of these guys, but it's gotten really good. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Awesome.
Excited to be replaced.
You know, there's this joke, there's this meme now where if you want to learn something, especially in code or one of those fields, the best place to learn from is this one Indian guy on YouTube, like going through like a 1-hour tutorial. It's now a meme on the internet. But it signifies a lot.
Kyun nahi ho rahi hai padhai? I'm kidding.
It's actually a testament to India, right? Which is where we grew up with this, I need to absorb all the information sort of, mindset. It's just for a very long time, we didn't have the access to the tools. Everything was expensive. I remember when I was young, I wanted to learn 3D animation. When I was very, very young. And, a license of one of these tools was super expensive. Like a 3ds Max at that time was super expensive. I was like, shit, I can't get in. But then, look at today, right? Today, if there's a new AI tool, it's usually open source. Most people, at least in this room, know how to use that. And they can build useful tools, products, and solutions right off the bat. So, never been more bullish on India. I think something about our upbringing has allowed us to just, anything new that comes up, we will adapt. And we've always been known as the adaptable kind, so I feel right place, right time. It's our job to take advantage of AI now.
At the very least, we will become CEO of one of these companies. So.
Super. Okay, I've got some serious questions, so I'll probably start with them. I'll probably start with Varun. He's the one who interviewed Sundar Pichai recently.
How does it feel, by the way? Because after Sundar Pichai, it's you sitting opposite Varun. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Feels great.
Yeah, feels good.
It's awesome. Thank you. So
stop blushing, dude. Look at him. Varun, like, that's right. Sundar picked me.
So yeah, in your recent interview with Sundar, you spoke about what Indian developers should be building in AI, and he said that they should be leveraging the APIs, building on existing infrastructure. What is your opinion? What are the opportunities that exist today that developers should be thinking about while building on AI?
I think there was this argument or this conversation that was happening last year, which is, should India build foundational models? Do we need to like go deep down, build our own set of foundational models? I think there is some truth to that. I think we should build some of our foundational models, but I think we are now at a point where if you want like a baseline LLM or you want a Bayes diffusion model to work on top of, we have enough and more open source ones, right? Like us adding another one doesn't matter. But what I've found in the real world, and we were hacking around last year, you came home that time, you saw some of the stuff that we were building. We were unclear where it was going to go. So we said, we'll try everything. We'll try experiment in this, experiment in that, experiment there. Ultimately, it boils down to a lesson I've learned over 10 years. And it's almost like AI doesn't change that lesson. You have to build something useful that people really want. And your end consumer doesn't care whether it's AI, whether it's, it's got this new technology in it, it's got old technology. It's just like, I have a problem, can you solve it? So I think the minute, and instead, all of us as engineers, we get into these arguments of, oh, should we build is it a wrapper if you build on top of Gemini, or is it a wrapper if you build on top of ChatGPT? I think it doesn't matter to your end customer. And if you're focused on your end customer rather than being focused on your peers, because a lot of engineers, I see this in artists as well, right? All of us. In the beginning, we start knowing that we're creating for our audience. Over time, we start creating for our peers. And we're like, what will my friends think of this cool thing that I built? It's a very hard thing to break out of and truly be like, okay, this is what my customers want. I'm only going to build what my customers want. I don't care what my peers think of me. It's too simple an app. I don't care what they think. If it's too complicated, I just don't care. I just want to solve a problem for the customer. And I think Sundar was hinting to that, right? Which is ultimately, people will pay you for value that you provide them.
Especially if that value is AI girlfriends. Clearly, people are paying for that.
Yeah, and no AI girlfriend customer is going to be looking at the product and being like, oh, which LLM is this built on? They don't care.
That's too funny.
They're like, aaj maze lenge. They don't really care about what.
Dude, I feel like I'm really connected with Llama. I feel like I have a deeper soul connection with Llama. I know, man. All ChatGPT boys are fuckboys, Yeah, no one's saying that. And if you do that, then you especially can't care about what your peers think of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Why don't you speak about this with Sundar?
this? Yeah, it's a little bit dicey to go tell Google, hey, when the AI girlfriend's coming out?
Okay, I have a question for you. So you're my most favorite comedian, YouTuber. I've told you that years back
Thank
when
you,
I met you.
brother.
Yeah. And I always keep wondering, you come up with these viral ads for Cred, Oyo, Bold Care, and we all love those ads. How do you bring in so much innovation, creativity? What's your secret sauce?
ChatGPT, I'm kidding. No, but we do use ChatGPT while writing. While it's not, we keep discussing, which is I think fresh writing requires you to break pattern, right? Requires you to break a certain expectation. Whereas I think LLMs are excellent at prediction. That's the gap that AI kind of bridged, which is it's able to predict based on training data. Oh, this should come after this. This should come after this. But freshness only comes from when you're able to break what you could ideally easily predict. But I think that this gap will eventually it'll figure out what is fresh as well. But right now it's just a great writer's room to have. How do we do it? I think the challenges from say 10 years ago, marketing 10 years ago to today, the primary one is distribution is decentralized today. So what's more important is attention, which is are you able to grab attention? Everything else to me is secondary. And if you're in a room and if you're having fun, then most likely people who are watching it will have fun. That's the simplest rule. Some other things that I've been lucky with, chain of command, you want to operate with people who make the decisions for you. Creativity is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship. So one person should lead, one person should okay. The second it becomes a hierarchical decision-making thing, that's where creativity goes to die. Yeah.
Not
this
many
kind of
people
stuff.
know about this entrepreneurial side of yours, and I would like, one of my questions was, how do you delegate? Because we all think it's the Tanmay Bhatt's, ideas, innovation, and creation. But you've got a massive team. There's Moonshots, there's Overpowered.
I think Varun would be better at to answer this because I do a lot of creative work and I actually don't have a large team. Pizza teams is what I usually work in, which is teams that can share a pizza, so 5-6 people. Creativity is tough to scale. Creativity is very, very hard to scale. Like you won't get that kind of output when you have a 100% team. I do it because I enjoy doing it and I do it with as much leverage as possible. But yeah, how do you delegate, Varun?
I don't know.
Varun's company now is like between all the companies that Varun runs, it's like 150 odd people. So he's right. I'm still like 6.
I love his
8
new
people.
office. It's awesome.
Yeah, one of the things we haven't really been public about is how big the company's become. I think EOS has now become fairly large in terms of talent count. But I'll tell you something about Tanmay, right? Like, at least to answer a little bit of your question with my words, I think Tanmay has just been doing this for so long. It's like a model.
It's calling me old.
It's like an AI model trained where you talk to it and it'll give you like a punchline, a joke, it'll connect two things together. It's how he naturally is.
My need to please.
Right? So you give him a piece of paper and you're like, write, and he'll write a joke or he'll write, a good script. It's like this rare ability I haven't seen in anybody. You give him a paper, it's done. Like you have something
That's not the question. That's not the question he asked.
No, the question he asked previous to this one. Now back to your delegation question, Vargav.
Yeah,
I think how I delegate is I'm like a missing dad in the office. Like I'm like, hey, we'll hire somebody, we'll get good leadership, and then I'm like, you
it's
do
the
your
most
own
non-LinkedIn answer you'll ever get.
Yeah, it's just
I'm
do
like
your
a
own
missing.
thing.
How do you delegate like a missing dad?
Like you do your own thing. You give the person their abilities. You give the person like a boundary list. I think what leadership really needs is mentorship on where this is going to go, what they can expect. Because leadership is a very ambiguous role, right? Like you don't know. Like if I tell you, okay, your goal now is to make 5 crores this year. Nobody has any idea how to do that. Like, and nobody has any idea whether it's going to end up at 5 CR, 2 CR, 20 CR. Like, how do you predict that? So giving a little bit of predictability, because I've seen some of this in the past to some of those employees, that leadership is very important. And because those people have been around for a while, a year and a half, whatever it is, right? Then they absorb and they pick up and they do it by themselves. And when I'm not there, and when they ask me a question, I'm just like, figure it out. And that's the value of being a bootstrap company, by the way.
I'll take it from there where you mentioned that client acquisition is a challenge. And I'm assuming that most of the people, there's so many freelancers, agency owners who are always struggling with getting more clients, better quality clients. What do you both of you think? What's a great way, to crack better distribution, get better clients?
Attend conferences. Yeah, what do you think?
I think make content. I think attending conferences is also a good thing because you meet peers. And starting a company with somebody is so hard because you don't know who they are, but you meet somebody in a conference, you know them. And conferences like this, I'm sure that even though everyone might be equal today, one of their companies is going to blow up and do really, really well, like a year later or 2 years later. So if you know that person and that company has started doing well, that person will have extra work that you can absorb. That's the best way to get clients. Just know a lot of people. And one of the things about Tanmay is like he just knows a lot of people, right? And now that
making content really helps, by the way. I think.
And is it just for India or for the world as well? Because
No, it's an asymmetric bet that you take, right? Like if a piece of content that you make, you don't know who's watching it, from where, and what it can lead to. It's actually grossly underrated. Making content is shockingly underrated. I think my whole career is because I tweeted back in 2010. I tweeted and I had all these politicians, actors, startup founders, they all followed me since back then. So I was able to have direct access to them. You could be a notification on their phone. It was only possible because I made content. So many of my newer peers, friends who I hang out with now is because I just saw them on a reel and I just texted them saying, hey, big fan or whatever, right? So you want to take as many asymmetric bets. So what are some obvious asymmetric bets that you can take? Making content is one. Moving to a city with concentrated talent, that's the other. Meeting more and more people, you don't know who's going
Is
to
that
end
why
up.
you moved to Bangalore?
Yeah.
Years back?
So the math I did was, hey, if I live in Bangalore for a year, can I let serendipity happen to me, and can I make the money back for having the extra house in Bangalore? That was just the math I did. And I just moved here. I think it was an absolutely killer decision. I keep coming back to Bangalore. I'm still here like 1 week a month. And so many founders I've met, because I could just text them and be like, third wave, and then they're like, yeah, at 2:30. That becomes a lot easier. So yeah, young people don't realize that on the other side of fear is an asymmetric return. All you got to do is just take that leap.
And those are very unpredictable, no? Like in the sense, writing code,
But the
especially.
overpower would not have happened if I wasn't in Bangalore.
How did Overpowered actually happen? Like, how did it go from an initial idea to like what you're running today? Close to 1 million followers almost.
Yeah, we just started spending time together.
He came home.
Yeah, I just started hanging out.
That
And I was in-
amazing Embassy Grove place, right? That you
Yeah,
mentioned.
that was
I just
Embassy
revealed
Grove.
the address already. Yeah, we just started hanging out. It wouldn't have happened if I was not in Bangalore. We just started spending a lot more time together. And then, yeah, Varun was like, will you be my second wife? And I said, yeah, let's do it.
It's sort of like that.
It was cute. It was one knee and all that.
And the thing about Overpowered is, in the beginning, we weren't like super serious about. We did one very good episode, and the channel, I mean, the Instagram just blew up. Like I have not seen that kind of growth. I don't think we've ever replicated that kind of exponential growth, right? 3 months we're like 600K, and we're like, wait, what just happened? Because we were expecting this to go like 10K this week, 10K the next, whatever, like fast but not that fast. So Overpowered blew up really fast, but how it started was just me and Tanmay meeting and then saying, do you want to try this? Do you want to do this?
What kind of DMs do you get on that channel? Like, I'm very curious. I know you get weird ones.
What kind of DMs do we get?
Akele ho ghar pe? I'm kidding. Yeah, I think beyond a certain scale on Instagram, that becomes the first comment or DM, right? What kind of DMs do you get? It's a lot of...
Sir job.
Yeah, it's a mix of, hey, this is cool, and hey, this is, don't scaremonger people, or hey, it's not this is not going to happen, what you say is going to happen. So there's a mix of amazement and fear that I see generally, and there's some of, some technical folks are also like, hey, this might not be what it is, and it's an interesting mix, I'd say.
Varun, there's so many developers, designers here, right? So if you said that content creation is a big way to get access to more clients, what kind of content should they be creating? Like, what should a developer create? Should they talk about their craft? Should we talk about their job? What should they create?
So I started using a tool called Super DM recently. Tanmay introduced me to Super DM, right? Where we've started using it like a job board. And when we post a job posting, let's say for a developer, let's say a React dev, right? We'll have thousands of applications today, but all of them look exactly the same, and many of them don't actually have portfolios. Like, there's not one clickable link. It's just, hey, I did this project in college, or I tried this, or I did this, but you can't actually click on any link and use what they've done. All I want to see when hiring a developer or hiring any role, right? Show me something you've done. Now, what's the easiest way to show something you've done? There are two ways. One is you go to, like a portfolio website and you put links. Or what I really love, and this is sort of like makes the interview process easy for you, it short circuits the interview process for you, which is just go put up a live stream video of you doing whatever you're good at. Writing code, do it over a live stream. Using Photoshop, do it over a live stream. Because when I or any of the recruiters in the company sees people tactically, going through step by step, you can see someone's thought in live stream, right? Like how they're thinking about the problems. I don't need to interview you if I saw that. And I can obviously hear your voice and I can see what you're doing if you have a small thing on the bottom left. And it turns out that sort of tutorial content is also something people want. But I'll tell you the problem with tutorial content. Every single person, and people think they're unique doing this, right? They're building the same 5 starter apps. So all I'm saying is try to go into domains or do things that nobody else has seen, because I want to see your unique problem solving skills. I don't want you to see somebody else's tutorial and make a 1:1 clone of that. I want to see something slightly different just to see your unique thought. And ultimately, when people hire, right, why is LeetCode so popular? Because people are hiring for problem solving skill. And in the live stream, I can see your problem solving skill. So if you can live stream, The second part of that is, let's say you start doing live streams often, it's also very useful for your peers. And you can take any niche topic, right? Actually, content also works if you take on niche. Like, one of the reasons Overpowered worked is because AI just boomed in India and we were on that inflection point. So pick a topic that's niche. For example, Unreal Engine game development or whatever, right? Like that doesn't have enough critical mass in India. Or there's a bunch of people that are making tutorials only on, let's say, Wix, right? That's sort of nicher than you saying, hey, I'll make, again, a forum app from start.
But how does one find that zing? Like, I know my craft, I can code online and stream it, but how do I find that X factor, which makes me different? Is it, like, how do you look within and discover?
I think so there's no easy answer to how to find the X factor to your content. But there's a step-by-step process. I think I've discussed this on a bunch of podcasts. The first one would be to get really good at outputting, which is the only way you will hit a bullseye is if you throw many darts. The only way you get good at throwing bullseyes is if you have 1,000 hours of experience of throwing darts. So people got to get good at just outputting content. Once you get good at doing that, then you got to get good at experimenting until you finally come to a format or a gag that works for you. Like, there's no way Easy Snippet discovered that on day one, right? The format that it does, which is catching you with a hook and then turning that into a tutorial. That doesn't come on day one. You can bet that he did that for many days until he eventually did one that exploded and then he was like, this is my thing. But that requires you to have the perseverance to do it. Like my friend Kenny Sebastian, he's been uploading YouTube videos since before me. And he did it for 8 years before his first like comedy viral hit. So you want to find like
see what sticks?
Passion market fit, which is do you enjoy just outputting this? Yeah, I LinkedIn
like you give a new
this.
definition of PMF to the crowd here.
Yeah, like you want to find that with content first, because if you don't enjoy it, then unfortunately you're just not going to make it, because too many other people enjoy making content. So yeah, I think picking a niche is a good idea.
Passion market fit. That's
Passion
my
market
big
fit,
takeaway from this session. I'm going to come back to developers, and you've spoken a lot about GitHub Copilot. Are there any other tools that you would like to suggest that people should be using here?
I mean, this is not really a coding tool, but I think everyone should be using the Meta Ray-Bans or something similar to it, right? In 6 months, we're going to have tools where you can just talk to like, how do I make this coffee? How many calories are in this? And the cool thing is the resolution of those cameras are good enough for you to look at a screen and be like, well, how should I solve this problem? So I feel most people here are not used to working with a Copilot. Actually, the best use case of ChatGPT or Gemini, even today, is writing code. Right? It just helps me solve problems. It writes all the menial code for me. I don't write menial code anymore, right? And it could be in any domain. It doesn't have to be something popular, right? Even if, like, for example, if I'm doing 3D tracking and I'm figuring out how to use a new platform, I'm like, oh, well, give me a quick 5-step tutorial. So it's really, really useful for that. But most people are not used to it. Like, most people are not used to using AI as a co-pilot. They feel like they're cheating or they're using training wheels or something by using AI. Like,
let's ask the audience, how many of you here use...
How many of you feel you're cheating by using AI to write code for you? Okay, the rest of you are like freeloading on ChatGPT.
And
ChatGPT is doing the job.
GitHub Copilot, how many of you use that?
How many of you use Copilot? That's a massive number. Like Cursor, there's another tool called Cursor that we use often. I think...
How's Devin? Have you used Devin? No?
I didn't get access to Devin. Okay. But I've tried some of the open source versions of Devin, right? Like, I think eventually we'll have agents. Eventually we'll have these agents go out and do the job for us, where our job is to make sure it doesn't like deviate too far from the path. Sort of like what I do, right? Like the missing dad problem, where you give it a job, then you disappear till something breaks.
You gotta stop talking about the missing dad thing, bro. It's not a good example.
So it's sort of like that, but I think ultimately this man-machine symbiosis, which a lot of you have with your phones, has to happen with AI, and it's just practice. I bet Tanmay can do it a lot better than most people you'd meet on the street, because Tanmay actually, I've seen him use Midjourney to make like an image of Dhoni in a scene,
I've seen that
and stuff.
Midjourney, yeah.
Scene and stuff, just because he's like thinking. He's like, okay, what should I make Dhoni look like? And he'll just ask Midjourney to give him ideas. So I feel that sort of riffing, you're not asking it for a solution, just asking it for ideas or paths you should go explore in a particular problem area. I think that is super valuable. So yeah, Cursor, Copilot, and definitely the Meta Ray-Bans or something similar. Meta Ray-Bans aren't there yet, at least the AI parts. But over the next 6-8 months, like having a GPT 4.0 on Meta Ray-Bans would be awesome.
Got it. Okay, my penultimate question, and applies to both of you. A lot of agency owners struggle to hire great talent. I want to get some tips. How do you find great people? Like, what's that mantra to find great people, especially like for the pizza team that you just mentioned? Like, how do you find 5 great people, and how do you get them together?
I think it'll be different for developers and
But
different for
what are
creative
the
people.
basics? Like, how do you identify that this man is not faking in his interview? He really knows his shit.
So when it comes to creative people, past work helps. At least the way we do. I take very long with hiring. I prefer to work on a project, on a creative project over months. Creativity is like, if you notice, when there are creative duos or trios, they just work together for very long. Like Jatin Lalit will make music till they die, right? Like Salim Suleiman will be like that. Salim Javed will like that. Which is once you find someone to be on the same page, which is they have the same aesthetic taste as you, that's hard to replace. And the only way to be on the same page of aesthetic taste is to go through the feedback loop multiple times over together. Only then do you realize, if I do X, then the result is Y, and this is what the audience perceives, and then you do it again and again. So creative hires are always a test and see how it goes, what role are they playing in the creative team. Sometimes I've hired folks who aren't the most creative people, but they're a really good person to have in the room because they just don't let the energy dip. Someone might not have the best ideas, but that person being there means we get 8 ideas in a day as opposed to 4. So it really depends on how someone fits in the room. Trial and error is the best way for me.
How
For
about you've
devs,
been hiring a lot, so
Yeah, so we have a rule in the company where
they have a truck that they go outside an engineering
I've
college.
seen that Mass Recruiter AI.
no, yeah, I
Mass
was just
Recruiter
thinking
video.
of
I do
that
that.
video, Mass Recruiter.
Yeah, it's exactly
I wear a
like
suit
that.
and I walk into that music.
You played the game Valorant, right? You
Yeah.
played Valorant. So we look at professional hiring the same way we look at Valorant, which is you're playing, it's a small team, you have 4-5 people in any particular team, you want to add a 6th or a 5th person in the team. Now, how would you evaluate if they're good? Right? First, you need deal flow. You need to see enough people. And the easiest way is to go on YouTube or go on Discord or, you putting up a job posting for Valorant is not going to get you great results. It's going to be the most desperate people or, people who are not really serious. But if you go to Discord, you'll find some of these cool people. You don't even know what their real names are. And the only way to find out is play with them. You play a game with them and be like, come, we'll play one game professionally. We'll see what you're like. Because you learn 2 things. One, you see their skill. And that's pretty evident from score count. But also you see how they are to play with. Because a lot of this, at least with a game like Valorant, if there's lots of people who are very solo, they will play their own game. There are lots of people who are too scared, right? And constantly need direction. So you know what the play style is, and then you figure out, does the play style gel? So instead of culture, with most people, we've started calling it play style because we're like, everyone has a different play style. Some play styles will fit here because we're a slow growth bootstrap. Slow growth is the wrong word, but we're a bootstrap company, whereas some other places a different play style would work. So we'll play a game, and the easiest way to do that is do a project with us, right? Okay, so if you're doing this, it'll be a paid project. We'll work on XYZ problem, and if the output's good, we'll learn about you, you learn about us, and then you also make a decision whether you want to work with us. That's how we hire. How do we get deal flow? It's again content, right? Once you have distribution, not only do you get clients, you also get deal flow. And it's growth in terms of distribution is exponential, especially on platforms like YouTube. But the deal flow is linear, but in a good way, right? So if you have 1,000 followers, maybe you'll get 2 leads a month. If you have 10,000 followers, you get 20 leads a month. If you get 100,000 followers, you get 200 leads a month. If you get 1 million followers, you get 2,000 leads a month, and so on and so forth, right? So because now we've gotten to scale with some of our channels, it's easy for us to post something and get people to join. And worst case scenario, we're the kind of people where if we want to hire a lot of something, we just make a school. Which is like, we'll teach you
One thing that he missed in the hiring process was asking candidates how they feel about their fathers.
Is there going to be a tweet on missing dad syndrome or something like that?
Yeah. But it was like, पापा कैसे हैं आपके? ठीक है, बात होती है? बात नहीं होती? You're hired. Welcome.
All right, last question before we wrap this up. There are a lot of agency owners and freelancers here who've been in the services business for 5, 10, 15 years. And in services, there's sort of a fatigue that starts coming in after, being there for a decade. If there's one advice that you would like to give, to keep going, what's...
Yeah, so I run a service business, and if there's something I could tell people is that there is always some remorse at the end of a service transaction. Either there's buyer's remorse or there's seller's remorse. You want to optimize for having as less remorse as possible at the end of a transaction.
Sort of like negotiation, right? Like nobody should go back happy.
You should be sweating when you make deals.
Right.
Like you should feel like if I lost this deal, I'll really hate it. And the other person's like, yo, if this deal, if this doesn't end up well, I would have spent a lot, bro. I'm sweating. So both parties should be sweating. I think that's a really good one. Akshay taught me that. I think that's valuable. Yeah. Don't optimize, optimize for lack of remorse at your end. In the long run, it'll keep the job enjoyable to you. You might not, you might have a bad day, but then you look at your bank account and feel kind of good, saying it's fine. I'm not happy with this, but this is a nice table that I could buy. Yeah.
What do you think?
I think there are two kinds of services founders. Some that are doing it for money and some that are truly passionate about the craft. Whatever the service is, they might not enjoy the service part of it and the transaction and the meeting with people, but they enjoy the craft. You're hiring me for X, but I love doing the thing. I love writing code, so you hire me for that. And then all the other parts you can always hire somebody else for, right? So you don't have to go through that fatigue. But I think over the long run, the non-serious services founders will lose to the serious services founders. It's like an athlete saying 5 years in, I don't want to run anymore, right? It doesn't work. Now, you might think that products are is a much more sexier space to be in than services. I think especially in India, if we're also talking about money, I think services do pretty well in India. And I think if you have that mindset and you go into the services business knowing you're not going to switch later, because a lot of people start a services business with the dream that one day we'll build a product and we'll stop doing the entire services thing and we'll be a 5-man team and make trillions of dollars. That never actually happens. And it's not a unique dream. Everyone, including me, have had that dream in my head for a very long time, right? So the minute you can be okay with, I'm going to do services, therefore I'm going to do everything. 50 years later, I'm going to continue doing this. So if I'm going to do it, what are the parts that I hate? What are those parts that I can outsource? And also, if I'm going to be doing it all the time, how do I mentally be okay with this? So you walk in knowing this is a 50-year, 70-year, whatever it is, right? 5-year journey for you. And you're not going to get distracted doing products. Easier said than done, because I get distracted constantly. But
I'm watching you say all this and I'm like, really?
Yeah, but my advantage is I have a great team, and there are people in my team who are far better at running a services company than I am. And the joy that they get on closing a new deal and servicing that deal, you've worked with some of them, right? The joy that they get, you can't beat that, right? And no one competing with that, no one can compete with that half-assed, right? So I just make it a point to hire people like that, and I know that they will win in the long run. All I have to do is give them the platform, be like, what's the part you hate? Getting new clients? I'll do that for you. What's the part you hate? Figuring out infrastructure? I'll do that for you. What's the part you hate? Hiring other really smart people because they might not come to work with you because you're doing boring services? I'll make it cool. So that's my job. So I do the parts that they can't, and they do the parts that I can't.
He's not as missing a dad as you'd think. He's kind of doing his thing.
Once a week, dad.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, both of you, Varun, Tanmay, joining us today at the Next Developer Conference.
Yeah, for any other daddy-related issues, you can meet Varun after.
My email is tanmay@gmail.com.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.